Good morning and welcome back to Adventures with Dice. I am Rob and I am your host for these videos. This is episode 6 of our RPG campaign, our Icrpg campaign. And it is called The Witching Hour. So I'm a little late in putting this one up. In fact, I'm over a week late because we play again this weekend, so I'll just get that one up as soon as I can. I'm not going to do the normal switch over and do a kind of play-by-play because everything took place this particular game night in one courtyard, which I will throw the picture up here, a couple of pictures, so that you can see what I had, the setup that I had. But one of the reasons I'm not throwing everything out on the table is there wasn't a lot to see other than me just moving figures around till close to the end of the encounter. And that is because my players learned a valuable lesson in this particular room or encounter, and that is that invisibility, or the hidden spell, is pretty broken as written. Now granted, everything in Icrpg is open to interpretation and however your game master wants to run it. But if you're looking at the hidden just rules as written, it seems very much that you can cast invisibility, and as long as your companions stay near to you, you can all be invisible and attack, and there are no repercussions for it. And I've always disliked that in games. Even as a player, I find it broken to be able to be invisible and attack. So they were, if you've been keeping up with the episodes, they were headed to this town because of Brockhaven, and it's because they heard the witch hunters, the White Flame witch hunters, talking about going there to wipe out a coven. And they know that these guys are zealots and that they're killing innocent people for their cause. So they decided to jump ahead of them and try to warn the witches, which they assumed immediately were not witches. So by casting the spell Doorway, excuse me, they jumped ahead the 2-day travel time to get to Brockhaven. And when they got there, our arcane caster, our mage, immediately heard a voice in her head saying, "Welcome home," and they proceeded on into the courtyard. Now the picture that I'm showing is what the courtyard looked like. So there's buildings all the way around it. They come in the main door. The difference is, in this scenario, they could see the blighted knights, these blighted warriors that were coming out and fighting them, and I just used my Blight King models for that. But they couldn't see the witches. The witches had a cauldron and a group spell working together that was allowing them to cast spells and affect all of them. And there are 4 that were here, but all 4 witches were invisible and in hidden locations. Now, I had everything set up on here on my map in my notebook, so I knew where the witches were, where the Blight Knights were, so on and so forth. And they did a pretty good job of moving around. Like, they realized very quickly that the witches were invisible. The witches were doing things to try to control their minds, dropping fireballs all over the place. And I had it set up to where they were kind of in a trap. Like, the whole town had been under the dome, bubbled, basically. Once you got in, you couldn't escape unless the witches let you go, which was not going to happen without a fight. But they didn't try to doorway back out of there. They continued to fight and try to find the witches, and they came up with some pretty unique ways. There was some some barrels and stuff that they had flour, and they tried to, um, you know, use the flour to throw it all over the place and find tracks, or hopefully find where the witches were. Um, they used a barrel of ale to put water all over the ground to try to see footprints in it, things like that. But there was a lot of just their figures moving around the table and trying different things and casting different heals and stuff like that, because they were taking a lot of damage. And it wasn't until the very end of the battle that they sussed out where the location of several of the witches were, and then they started taking them down. Until they finally got to the last witch, and when they killed the last witch, she then became visible and crashed to the ground, and her facade melted away, revealing a snake man, one of the serpent people from the First Age, who had been masquerading as a witch. So they started looking for the people in the town. They found the basement of the inn where the blighted knights had been coming from. What was left of the townsfolk had been laid out on these tables in this basement, and they had these big vials of green blight being pumped into them and converting them into these blighted knights that the witches would then send out or use as guards or whatever. The issue was that everybody really in the town, it was too late for them. So they continued to explore, and upstairs above in the inn, it had been converted into the witches' headquarters, basically. And they found several things, and I'll go over in a minute what this stuff was for. So the witches, to use them, I gave them +4 to all rolls. They had a hex spell, which the target's mind is flooded with nightmarish visions of their past failures. They have to pass a charisma check or lose their next turn. They had arcane missile. They had blighted healing, which was healing each other for a D10. And Markova, the main witch, had +5 to all rolls, had hex, arcane bolt, blighted healing, hidden, and fireball. Now when Markova died, the skin melted away, revealing the snake man. And they also found a heavy set of keys and a strange red gemstone that was so perfectly cut you were able to see through it. So taking this stuff, they go into the inn. The main room of the inn has been converted. It's all kinds of blighted stuff to the god Nurgle is in here. But there's a room at the back that is locked. And obviously the set of keys gets them through the door pretty easily. But that room that was locked was Markova's private chamber. And when they open it up, they find that there's this, not only was it her private chamber, but he had erected this big stone archway that's covered in all these weird sigils that they don't understand. And under her bed, they find a chest. They get it open with the keys, and the chest inside is a collection of notes that's written in a strange script, perhaps some kind of code. They can't read it clearly, so they're not sure what it is at first. It takes them a little bit to try using the crystal to see through on the notes, but they do. And basically what it reveals is it shows correspondence and plans. From Markova is a servant of Bast, and they have plans for spreading the blight. They also explain how in 6 months' time Markova would activate the portal, which is the big stone archway, and notes on how to do it, and allow someone named Krell and his serpent guard through. Markova says that he will continue to open the portal each week and report in. So what had actually happened here was that Markova, or that's the name that the serpent person was using, had come through, started building covens to Nurgle and spreading this blight stuff everywhere. And the intent behind it was they were building a guard of blighted knights, and they were trying to spread the blight throughout the land in this area of the Greenway, because they wanted to use it to weaken. Now, what Markova told the other witches, was that they were using it to weaken everyone with this blight, and that they would be the only ones with the cure, so the people would have to be subservient to them. When in reality, what Markovia was really doing was duping the witches, the fellow witches as well, and spreading the blight, but to kill off large chunks of the population, so that this resurgent of snake men that people thought had been wiped out would come through the portal and have less trouble taking over the land of the Greenway by force. And this is all to usher in a new age of snakes. And that's where the campaign is going, obviously. And I have the Age of Snakes book that I'll be using for that. And they have a chance now to basically cut the head off the snake, at the source. Because they know that Markova is checking in weekly, and Markova's not going to be doing that now because Markova is dead. They know that Markova has duped these other witches that helped her take over this town, and they know that Markova sent the Blight Witch up to the Abbey, who they took care of a few sessions ago. So they've been dealing with this pretty much nonstop for a while. And they have the option to activate the portal, because they now have the stone where they can read the script, and it has instructions on activating the portal, which they know somewhere on the other side of the portal is this warrior Krell and his serpent guard, and they could take the fight to them while they're unprepared and stop this invasion. And my two female players, the cleric and the mage, or the priestess and the mage, both of which were like, yeah, so we want to start destroying this portal. I'm like, okay, all right, so I guess we're just going to bust the portal up and wait on them to come through on their own or whatever, but So when the guys get in the room, they make the suggestion of, hey, we should... Actually, it was made in jest by Jimmy's character, Ball, and he was like, well, this is the first time y'all have had something pointing towards danger and you didn't go rushing into it. To which they all decided at that point, hey, wait, we should activate the portal, go through. If it ever gets to be too much, we can always doorway out of here. But this gives us a chance to go through and kind of stop this invasion before it happens. So they were like, okay, well, there's only one set of instructions. We're going to take the instructions for activating the portal with us. That way, when the witch hunters do finally get here and realize that they're too late, they won't be able to activate the portal and follow us, which is arcane, and they don't use arcane magic anyway because they're witch hunters. So they activate the portal, and they step through the portal, to which I left them with, because this is where we ended at. You step from the portal into a large dark cavern. The air is dry and dusty. As the portal closes, its dim light fades. There are sounds of movement in the darkness. You are not alone. And that leads us into the next adventure, which is the Caverns of Cath, because they've now portaled all the way to Cath, and they're in the area of an underground serpent temple where the snakes are rebuilding their forces and preparing to invade the Greenway. So we're headed towards a clear big battle that's going to wrap up this campaign. for several reasons. This is a contained story. Once I got to the end of the story, I was just going to stop it and do something else. And we have a few more sessions before it ends, and I'll keep putting those up in the playlist so everybody can check them out. This is been a lot of fun, but I'm definitely going to have everybody making their characters and using mostly rules from 2nd Edition Core in our next campaign. I find that Master Edition, the characters are way too over the top and super OP. 2nd Edition Core tones that down a little bit. I like it better. Monsters are still deadly, but they should be. If there's no risk of dying, then why are you playing the game? But that'll be a completely separate story that I'm doing with new characters. This one is going to be all about stopping the new Age of Snakes from happening, which ultimately is going to happen one way or the other. They're just stopping it from happening right here in the Greenway first, basically. And that'll be where this campaign concludes. I've had a lot of fun with it. We have a lot of laughs. It's a great game. I do stand by the fact, and I've said this in another comment on another video recently, that I feel like 2nd Edition Core is the complete game, and I apologize for my dog. He's like snoring so loud. But the Master Edition that everybody seems to love, I actually regret getting. Like, I didn't pay for it. I got it as a gift, and I like that aspect of it. And it does have a few things in it that I think is nice, that I really like. But there is so much missing from Master Edition that was just cut out that, I don't know. My personal opinion is I like 2nd Edition Core better after playing with both of them, because my Friday night game is using nothing but 2nd Edition Core. And the only thing I've really changed in 2nd Edition Core is I use a D4 for a die and die like it states in Master Edition instead of the original D6. That's it. Pretty much everything else is 2nd Edition Core, and I don't know. I feel like it's a more complete game. There's a lot of stuff that, if I'm using the Master Edition book, I'm like, well, how does this work? How does that work? It alludes to some of it, but it doesn't really explain stuff, and I find myself having to go back to the older books to find what I'm looking for. Either way, it doesn't matter. As long as you and your table are having fun with it, just have fun with it, whichever version you're using, or if you're playing another game, whatever. We're getting together to hang out with friends and have fun. That's the point of all of this. So I hope you've enjoyed the video and me rambling about my games. I don't know that I'm going to do a video log on the next campaign that I do with this group. You can let me know in the comments. If enough people really want to see it, then maybe I will. It's not that it's hard to do. I just sometimes forget to do it. Like this past week, I've been still recovering and dealing with a lot of stuff that's not necessarily related to gaming. So I've been kind of busy, and then it just slipped my mind. I was like, oh yeah, we're coming up on the next game night, and I didn't do the video, so let me go do the video thing. So plenty of other videos coming. I still have the Hero Quest video from my 3D printed stuff that I'm working on filming today. So hopefully it'll be up soon. And if you're watching this, if you're one of the first people to watch this, it's because you're one of my patrons on Patreon. I can never say that right. This is an early access video. A lot of my videos are early access videos so that they see it first. One of the other things that I did introduce in this week's game was my magic mushrooms, which are a simple way for me to throw a little bit of healing out there that they can find fairly easily, but it's not like healing potions laying everywhere. So the rules for those are all on my Patreon as well. If you want any of the stuff I put up there, please join me on Patreon. It's $1 a month and you get access to everything. Other than that, there's the Amazon wish list if you want to support the channel on here. All these links are in the description. And most importantly, hey, like and subscribe. We've gotten a lot of new subscribers lately. I appreciate everybody that has subscribed, and I hope to keep putting videos out that you guys like, guys and gals. Until next time, my friends, good gaming and good luck.